Well, I suppose it was only a matter of time till it came to this during the 30-day challenge. How do I put this, like, nicely? I got my ass kicked today. Oh, hello, friend. Do you want to come up here? This is Otis. I don't know if you've ever seen him or not, but this is Otis. So, let me catch you up to speed if you haven't been watching along. My buddy Matt Streichel has been in town for the past 3 days, got in Sunday night. And Matt is a YouTuber as well, makes fishing videos about bass and muskie, and is just one of the best dudes on the planet. And he came down here with one fish, one goal in mind, and that was to catch a tarpon, and we have hit it hard. Monday, Matt and I went out, and Matt hooked about a 15 to 20 pound tarpon, fought it for a while, and it ended up breaking off. Monday, Matt and I went tarpon fishing, and we tangled into some, and Matt hooked one, and it ended up breaking off. Tuesday, we went out again. I caught a tarpon. Matt did not. So, he's here for a tarpon. This morning, we head out. First thing in the morning. We got bait in the dark. We're arriving to the spot. Tarpon rolls. I go, Matt, tarpon right there. Flicks a bait over to it. Boom! Instantly, first cast of the morning. First tarpon we see roll. Hooks up. Boom. There it is. Fished for the rest of the day and caught absolutely nothing. Like, I maybe had one single bite from a long-nosed gar, and that was it. And we were pitching live bait for tarpon. We pitched along seawalls. We pitched along mangroves. I just, couldn't buy a bite. And so I was like, all right, here's what we'll do. We'll regroup, and we'll do something really fun and goofy. And let's go bow fishing. Let's go try to shoot some tilapia with a bow. We go out to go bow fishing, and literally first shot, boom, slam a big tilapia, and he pulls off. So that brings me back around to where we are right now. If you type in Lawson Lindsey into the YouTube search filter, the first two things that come up, actually the first thing that comes up is Lawson Lindsey Rod and Reel Arsenal. And I have not talked about that in a long time, and I have a bunch of new rods and reels I've never talked about because all my crap got stolen like a year and a half ago. So that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to break you through my new rod and reel arsenal. And then the second most thing is Lawson learns to love again. Now that's something I can get into. Okay, as you can see behind me, I have a bunch of rods. Now, there's I own quite a bit of gear, but these are the ones that I use the most, and I've been using over the past year or so. And all full disclosure, I am sponsored by Favorite Rods, and I have some rods that aren't Favorite Rods, and that's what's cool about the company, is that they allow me to use rods that aren't exclusively theirs, but they don't want me to be like, oh my gosh, this blah 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 rod is so great, and I'm a big fan of the rods Favorite makes, and so most of my bait casting gear is Favorite rods, and then some of my spinning gear isn't, because they're still developing a saltwater line of rods. But I just want to be honest with you guys about what's up. So we're gonna start from smallest to biggest. Right here, this is a Pin Clash 2 on a 7'6" medium light rod. Now this is probably one of my most used setups. I use this for trout and snook and redfish and tarpon, but smaller snook, smaller tarpon. And it is what I like to use to throw my smaller baits. Right there, I have a tiny little twitch bait on. I throw a lot of artificial shrimp on this, and I throw a lot of 1/4 ounce, 1/8 ounce jig heads and paddle tails. Secondly, a die with the Tula that I have on a Favorite Phantom medium heavy, 7'3". This is my small bait caster setup. I know I don't do a ton of bass fishing, but I do like to do it on occasions, and I use this thing for throwing Texas rigs or jigs. I originally had 17-pound fluoro on here, but now it's just 15-pound braid, and a lot of times I'll tie leader. I'll use this for throwing little finger mullet in saltwater, and sometimes throwing 1/2 ounce paddle tails and stuff like that. Really, really awesome setup. You can feel stuff really well. Great for stuff in that 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce range. And I'll throw jigs on it sometimes, but I'll mainly throw heavier swim baits and stuff like that. Super solid setup. Here, my mid-range setup, 3000 size reel, 7'6" medium heavy spinning rod. This is my bombing rod, my search bait rod. I throw my bigger baits on here and I just cover ground with this rod. Sometimes I'll throw big like 1 ounce top waters, but this is what I use for like everything. If I had to suggest one single rod to use for inshore fishing, it would be a 3000 or a 4000 on a 7'6" medium heavy spinning rod. It can handle basically anything. You could tackle into some really good sized snook. It'd be touch and go, but you can do it. And it's still a lot of fun to catch 20-inch trout, 25-inch reds, even the smaller fish on it. On here, 20-pound braid. Now, I'm normally running probably something between a 20 to 40-pound fluorocarbon leader on here, depending on what I'm doing. Caster setup. This is a favorite Emperor 7'4" heavy, and on it is a Daiwa Pro Rex. I actually got this reel when I was in Australia. I don't know if they make it in the US or not, but I've had it for over like a year and a half now. I got it on my first trip to Australia when I was fishing for Murray cod, and it creaks and groans a little bit now after using it in salt water so much, but it's still holding up well. This is a rod I use for throwing frogs for the most part, and occasionally I will bring it into salt water and I'll throw some top waters with it, but this is like my frog rod for bass fishing. I have 50-pound braid on here and just straight braid is normally what I'm running on this. Super, super solid stick, and it's just good, man. It's just good. Alright, this right here isn't actually even my setup. I'm going to talk about it anyways because I've been using it a little bit, stealing it a little bit. This is Chelsea's bait caster. Now, Chelsea actually only really started fishing when her and I began dating, and she'd fished a little bit before but was never like super into it, and she's gotten pretty damn good at it, honestly. And so she, like probably like a few months ago, was like really wanted her own setup to throw that was hers, so she didn't feel like she was like stealing my rods or whatever when I'm trying to fish. And I was like, all right, you want a bait caster, you want a spinning rod? And she wanted a bait caster, and she can throw a bait caster really well. This is an Okuma Komodo 200. On it, there is 30-pound braid, and it's on a medium heavy Juno Bait Custom, which is just a tackle shop around the corner that makes some really solid rods. And this is a badass stick. Like, I am jealous of this setup here. It is a killer snook setup for throwing artificials. You can also pitch mullet on it really well. Like, you could throw a 7-inch, 8-inch full-size white mullet on it and do really well with it, but you can also throw like a half-ounce swim bait. It is probably one of my favorite things for throwing like medium-sized topwaters. This is just an all-around badass setup, and I'm jealous of it. That's why I use it occasionally when she's not fishing with me. Now, the big brother to the reel I just showed you. This is an Okuma 300 on a big, sexy favorite rod. This setup is dope. This probably is, other than that little 2500 spinning rod setup, this is like my big fish setup that I use the most often. I throw big swim baits on it. I throw big 1 ounce top waters on it, and even more. This is a 3 ounce popper I have on here. Handles it like it's not even a problem, and this casts a freaking mile. One of my favorite setups I ever owned. This big sexy. When I got it, I was like, man, that's a nice rod, but it's a bass rod. I was kind of skeptical. I've whacked so many big fish on this thing, it's crazy. And the Komodo, I think, has like 24 pounds of drag, and on here I have 40-pound braid. It's just like a killer setup that I use it for live baiting, throwing jigs at night, big giant top waters, heavy swim baits. You can get away with throwing like even half-ounce stuff on it because it's so sensitive. And I'll throw stuff from a half ounce to 3 ounces on this thing, and it crushes. Really happy with this thing right here. The big stick, the big spinning rod. 6,000 Shimano Saragossa on here, and I have an 8-foot mag heavy spinning rod. And then on here is just, I think, like 280 yards of 30-pound braid, maybe even more than that. This is a rod I like to use for live baiting on occasion. It's like my secondary live bait rod, and I love it for slinging heavy plugs. That's a 2-ounce GT ice cream. It's a big giant top water. This thing freaking is a catapult. Like, I could throw this top water lure here, I'm not kidding, probably 75 yards on this setup. And that's what I like to use this mainly for, is just throwing giant top waters or glide baits or diving plugs. It is pretty freaking sick. It's just been a solid setup. And on occasion, you've probably seen me do this. take the Saragossa off, drop on the Daiwa Saltiga. This is a Daiwa Saltiga 8000. This reel I bought for GT fishing and Cubera snapper fishing, and it's got like 67 pounds of drag. These reels are just ridiculous. They're super expensive, but they're really, really cool. And so on occasion, I will swap the Saragossa out for the Daiwa Saltiga when I'm doing just particular things, like if I was fishing for blacktip sharks or if I was going offshore trying to fish for kingfish. 6,000 is fine, but the Saltiga is just a beast. It's really cool to use. The big boy. Now this rod has only ever made an appearance in like 1 or 2 videos. This is an Accurate Turn 500, and it's on a Juno Baits custom, like extra, I think a double X heavy rod. And this rod has been used just for cranking on big giants. It's meant for sharks and Goliath grouper basically, or like stingrays. I've even used it for fishing offshore a little bit, live baiting out blue runners for big giant kingfish. Super, super cool. I think the Turn has like 35 pounds of drag on it, and this rod is just literally a flagpole. Like bury it under your arm and just hold on. On here I have a 100-pound top shot of mono, like 80 feet of a 100-pound top shot. Then underneath it I think 350 yards of 80-pound braid. This is like the big fish stick. And I've been wanting to almost make a whole entire video series revolving around this here. If you guys are interested in it, let me know. I basically want to do something called like the Monster Hunter series, where like maybe once a month, the whole entire goal of the video is trying to catch just a big giant fish, whether it's big sharks, big Goliath groupers, giant tarpon, huge stingrays. Maybe we go and fish for giant catfish up in like the Midwest. It's going for giant alligator gar somewhere in Texas, Louisiana. Like making a whole entire series about just trying to target big giant fish. I think it'd be really fun. That interests me a lot. And I got this with that type of stuff in mind, like catching big rays, catching sharks, catching Goliath groupers. The last thing I'll talk about here, this is my 10-weight fly rod. It is a Sage Motive, and on it I have a Nautilus 10-weight reels just floated. Actually, this is intermediate line, and this one, it doesn't get a ton of play because the 10-weight, I really got it for trying to target like some bigger size tarpon or bigger jack and bigger snook, and I just don't whip it out all that much as I should. It's an amazing setup. Ran me a few pennies, but it is really beautiful, man. And I have an 8-weight as well, but I feel like I've talked about it before, and I have 3 8-weight rods that are all snapped in half right now, and none of them have actually even occurred while fishing. 2 of them have been while traveling, and one of them you probably saw in a video earlier during the 30-day challenge where I was literally just pulling out line and the rod just snapped in half. It was just an old dusty 8-weight. But this is my 10-weight. This is like my nice baby fly rod, the first fly rod I ever actually really put any money to, and it's like really nice. You know what, you guys, I think that's it. You know, I own a lot of rods, but those are like the core ones that I normally use. Now, I feel like there's probably a lot of people who are going to watch this video and be like, this tool has so many fishing rods, you only really need one rod to catch fish. And you're right, you really only do need one rod to catch some fish. But what the benefit of having multiple rods does is what I kind of explained to you, is that it allows you to have different options. My Big Sexy on the Komodo 300 cannot throw the same baits that my little 7-foot spinning rod with the 2500 Clash can throw. It just can't do the same thing. They're meant for entirely different purposes. What I like to do though, you know, I go out fishing, I have this whole entire arsenal of rods, and they're all designed to do different things. And they may have a little bit of an inner lap, but they're designed to do different things, and it makes it easier on me while I'm fishing, trying to make videos. My rod that has my top water on it, my rod that has my swim bait on it, my rod that has a diving plug, this one has a shrimp on it, this one has a live bait hook on it, and it makes those things easier. But that doesn't mean that's what you guys need to do. I do this for a living, so I get to have that luxury of it. My advice to you guys, if you want to have something that you can do a little bit of everything with, and you don't want to drop a ridiculous amount of money on a bunch of different setups, I would do this, these two right here. So in my hands, I have the setup that Chelsea has. This is a 200 size Okuma Komodo on a medium heavy rod. This can just do a little bit of everything. If you're looking for a bait caster setup that can do just anything you need, this is it. Not particularly these exact reels and this exact rod. I'm just saying a medium heavy, like a 200 or 300 size baitcaster reel, run 30 or 40 pound braid on it. You're good to go. You could go catch bass with this. You could go catch a 40-inch snook with this. All of it is possible. It's an incredible thing. And I would use like maybe a rod between 7'2" to 7'6". You're a spinning rod guy, 7'6", 3,000 size reel or 4,000 size reel. That is your all-around hero. You know, you don't need 10 rods. It definitely helps, but you don't need it. So my advice, it would be more beneficial for you guys if you're really trying to look into get more into fishing and trying to figure out tackle and stuff like that, to spend quality amount of money, maybe whatever that is for you. Maybe it's $150, maybe it's $400. I don't want to determine that for you. It would be more beneficial for you to buy a quality setup that is a mid-range setup that you could fish everything on than to have 4 crappy setups. That's my advice. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed the little breakdown. I enjoy doing stuff like that. The thing is, I really love talking about tackle, but I know it's not what this channel is really about, but I enjoy doing it on occasion. And I know a lot of you guys watch these videos and you're like, what the heck is that rod he's using? Oh, what's that new one? I haven't seen that. Or where did he get this? What's that spinning reel? So I just thought I would lay a little bit of knowledge on you, answer some of those questions, and clear some light. It's been a very long couple of days. It's been a very long, like 21 days as the 30-day challenge has been going. I think that's how far we are in, 21 or 22 days. I don't even know. But it's been incredible. A day like today really frustrates me, but I'm glad we're able to come home and talk about something cool. And I've had this idea in my head, and it was kind of like my backup plan when my backup plan failed. You know, tried to film 2 different videos today, just didn't happen. So come home, sit down, just have a good talk with you guys. It's always good fun. Alright, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you guys drop a like, make sure you are subscribed, leave some comments down below on what else you want to see. That's it for me, guys. Until next time, see ya.